From New York to California, voters made their voices heard. Hi, everyone. I'm Tram Mai. Democrats scored big wins in key races. We're breaking those down for you today and tracking reaction. This week's election was the first major round of balloting since President Trump's return to the White House. Many saw it as a temperature check to gauge how people are feeling. Democrats won the governor races in Virginia and New Jersey, as well as the New York City mayor's race that had so many people talking. California also voted in favor of congressional redistricting. That could play a big role in next year's midterm elections. So let's start in New York City. Zoran Mamdani won the mayor's race with his platform of rent freezes, free buses, and free child care. Trump had threatened to cut federal funding to New York City if Mamdani won. On Tuesday, the 34-year-old Democratic Socialist defeated former Governor Andrew Cuomo and Republican Curtis Sliwa. He'll now face the challenge of delivering on his ambitious campaign promises.
I'm so proud to be standing here today as the mayor-elect of the greatest city in the world. The hard work of improving New Yorkers' lives starts now. That process begins with transition. In the coming months, I and my team will build a city hall capable of delivering on the promises of this campaign.
Mamdani announced a team including former city and federal officials, all women, to steer his transition to New York City Hall. He's making history with his win. When he takes office on January 1st, he'll be the city's first Muslim mayor, the first of South Asian heritage, and its youngest mayor in more than a century. In New Jersey, Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill became the state's first female Democratic governor. She's a former Navy helicopter pilot and four-term member of Congress. She defeated Republican Jack Ciattarelli, who was endorsed by President Trump.
I know these are tough times. I know not everyone voted for me, but I'm working for everyone. Every single one of you. When we all do better, we all do better. So tomorrow begins a new day.
Sherrill campaigned on standing up to Trump and casted blame for voters' concerns over the economy on his tariffs. Virginia also voted in its first female governor to ever lead the Commonwealth. Democrat Abigail Spanberger is a former congresswoman and CIA case officer. She defeated Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears. Virginia has been one of the hardest hit states by the Trump administration's federal job cuts. Spanberger focused her campaign around that.
Virginia's economy doesn't work when Washington treats our Virginia workers as expendable. To those who have been impacted by the mass layoffs, by furloughs, by the hardships that you are experiencing, please know that I will direct the full power of the governor's office to support you.
Her victory flips the state's executive mansion from Republican control. It was a blue wave in Virginia. Democrats there also won the lieutenant governor and attorney general race. They also retained control of the Virginia state legislature. Marcella Robinson spoke to voters in Virginia to get their reaction to the results.
At Bob and Anita's Diner in Old Town Alexandria, breakfast and politics were top of mind for customers Wednesday morning.
I was thrilled.
Great. It was like a clean sweep. Oh, it's absolutely wonderful.
That reaction from many voters just hours after Virginia Democrats dominated the first major election since President Trump returned to the White House.
I think Abigail is going to do an absolutely wonderful job for the Commonwealth.
Voters like Bill Shackelford believe the economy and the impact of the federal shutdown on Virginians made the difference in this election.
I think that the current administration is holding a lot of people, not just federal employees, but a lot of people hostage.
Keith Peterson is a former federal employee who says typically the economy is a top issue that brings him to the polls, but not this year.
This time around, just the way people are being treated, I just don't like it as a black person in this country.
The Democratic sweep wasn't the outcome all Virginians hoped for.
I think it's hard to settle being a Catholic and voting for Spanberger. So for me, that was just a personal issue. We don't need boys who believe they're girls in locker rooms. I just don't believe in that.
Despite the loss, they tell me there's always room for unity.
Always space.
But for the majority of voters we spoke with, they say the message Tuesday night was loud and clear.
Given that the whole state skewed, I think it's that a lot of people think the country right now is heading in the wrong direction, and we want to pivot.
We the people, and we still hold the right to vote, and we still hold the right to change, make things change in this country.
Of course, Democrats hope to take this momentum into the midterm elections, but in the short term, what is really top of mind for a lot of Virginians right now is the fact that we are still in the middle of this government shutdown, the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. And will the results of this election have any impact on Capitol Hill? Will we see some compromise to bring an end to this shutdown? In Alexandria, Marcella Robertson, WUSA 9.
President Trump addressed the results and said the government shutdown was a factor for the Republican losses.
Last night, it was not expected to be a victory. It was very Democrat-heavy, but I don't think it was good for Republicans. I don't think it was good. I'm not sure it was good for anybody. But we had an interesting evening, and we learned a lot. And I think if you read the pollsters, the shutdown was a big factor, negative for the Republicans. And that was a big factor. And they say that I wasn't on the ballot was the biggest factor. But I don't know about that, but I was honored that they said that.
The government shutdown started back on October 1st and is now the longest in U.S. history. In California, voters approved a measure to redraw congressional districts. It gives Democrats an edge and counters Trump-backed Republican moves in states like Texas. Becca Hauberger has more on Prop 50 and what its passage means for California.
Here at the California Democratic Party headquarters in Sacramento, Governor Gavin Newsom spoke about an hour after polls closed Tuesday night. He called the passage of Prop 50 a win for Democrats. He says it shows the Democratic Party is now on its toes, not on its heels, not only here in California, but for many races Democrats won across the nation Tuesday night. He then quickly pivoted to criticizing President Donald Trump, saying Trump promised to make us healthier and wealthier, and instead Americans are sicker and poorer. He said President Trump is systematically trying to suppress free speech and free and fair elections. And he said Trump didn't anticipate California pushing back so aggressively with Prop 50, calling the ballot measure campaign a 90-day sprint. He said President Trump poked the bear and the bear roared. Now he's calling on other states to step up, as he says California did.
We need the state of Virginia. We need the state of Maryland. We need our friends in New York and Illinois and Colorado. We need to see other states with their remarkable leaders that have been doing remarkable things meet this moment head on as well to recognize what we're up against in 2026.
He pointed out Republican states, not only Texas, but also Missouri, North Carolina, Indiana, and Florida have either already redistricted or are considering it, underscoring the importance of the partisan fight, he says.
California Republicans are suing to block those maps. The California Republican Party says the new maps violate the 14th and 15th Amendment. They argue that those drawing the state's new maps justified the changes, saying they would boost the power of voters in Latino communities, even though Latinos already make up the majority of the state. They also say drawing districts in their favor unfairly disadvantages other races. We've got more election coverage coming up after the break. Welcome back. We're tracking results from this week's election. In Pennsylvania, Democrats swept all three elections for state Supreme Court justices. The wins could have implications for key cases involving redistricting and balloting for midterm elections and the 2028 presidential race in the nation's most populous swing state. Colorado approved raising taxes on people earning more than $300,000 a year. It's fund-free meals for all public school students in the state. The economy, jobs, and the cost of living were top concerns for voters in this election. That's according to a poll from the Associated Press of thousands of voters in states with key races. Lindley Sanders breaks it down.
Economic worries were the dominant concern for Tuesday's elections, according to preliminary findings from the AP voter poll. While President Donald Trump has tried to highlight his efforts to deport immigrants in the country illegally, few voters saw immigration as a top concern for the places where they live. In a positive sign for Democrats, they performed well among some groups that shifted towards Trump in last year's election. For instance, the vast majority of young voters supported Zohran Mamdani in New York City, and the Democratic candidates for governor in New Jersey and Virginia also performed well with this group. There was also a high level of discontent about America's direction as a country in several states. That's a sign that many voters aren't reassured by Trump's return to the White House, also a promising signal for Democrats who are looking to win back some of the voters who went to Trump last year. This is all according to the AP voter poll, a survey of more than 17,000 voters in California, New Jersey, New York City, and Virginia.
We're hearing reaction from both sides of the aisle on Capitol Hill. House Speaker Mike Johnson said there were no surprises in the election results.
What happened last night was blue states and blue cities voted blue. We all saw that coming. And no one should read too much into last night's election results. Off-year elections are not indicative of what's to come. That's what history teaches us. And I think the midterm is going to be a great one for us. We had a demographic shift in 2024. We have a very favorable election map on the Republican side, and it will be even more favorable once all the redistricting stuff is settled out.
Meanwhile, Democrats in Congress say they're now feeling momentum heading into the midterms next November.
As candidates across the country, up and down the ballot, decisively defeated MAGA Republicans in an extraordinary rejection of the extremism that the American people have been experiencing since day one of Donald Trump's presidency, and an embrace of the Democratic vision to make life better for everyday Americans. Democrats have all of the momentum in the world. Republicans woke up this morning and realized that they are no longer in a 2024 electoral environment. That's over.
Simone de Alba spoke with a political analyst on the path forward for Democrats and Republicans.
As we head into midterms, what this means for Donald Trump, what this means for Democrats, do you feel like this is the most momentum Democrats have had since they lost the presidential election?
It absolutely is the most momentum. I mean, you have concrete election results that you can point to. But I would caution that when I looked at some of the exit polling, I mean, the Democratic brand is still not popular. But I think that voters are prioritizing sending a message to President Trump over, this wasn't that I think voters are in love with Democrats and their message, but it's really more of a repudiation of Trump. When I look, though, at sort of more broadly, I mean, you have Republicans that are going to want to make, Zohran Mamdani in New York City, the new mayor, sort of the face of the party, a Democratic socialist. But you have Abigail Spanberger here in Virginia, and then Mikey Sherrill, who won in New Jersey. They were part of this class of 2018's national security Democrats that helped Democrats flip back the House. They're moderate. They have these sort of, very, again, military, national security credentials in many ways. And so I think that national Democrats are going to want to point towards someone like Spanberger, like Sherrill as the face of the party instead of Mamdani.
The midterm elections will settle state house control in dozens of states and determine whether Republicans maintain their majority in D.C. for the final years of Trump's presidency. That does it for us today, recapping the key races across the country. I'm Tram Mai. Thanks for watching.